Welcome to the very first video on this channel, and we're starting off with the smartphone. This is the Realme GT Master Edition, and what caught my attention with this device is its price point. I think it's going for about 28,000 rupees in India and around 300 to 400 bucks everywhere around the world. But like, look at these specs, right? Snapdragon 778, 120 hertz super AMOLED display, 65 watt super dart charger so you can top it up quickly, and then of course you get that super slim and light design. I honestly wish we had more affordable phones like this come to North America, because the competition would be absolutely through the roof. You know, like I think most of our mid-range phones are around the $400 to $500 mark, but this kind of competition would really heat things up. Now there is the Realme Explorer Edition, which is just another variant of this phone. I think the Explorer has like a gray black, but this is the Daybreak blue color, which is just a different texture. The Explorer has like a vegan leather feel to it. This is like your typical smartphone feel. Now you get some welcome paperwork. Inside the box you have actual chargers, which is something you don't see or starting not to see in more expensive smartphones. But this is their Super Dart charger, which will top up your phone quite quickly in about 30 minutes and give you enough juice to last the entire day. Here is the complimentary smartphone case to keep your phone protected until you buy a better one, or you can even just use this one for the rest of your life. Your USB Type-C charger, and then of course the final thing in the box is a little SIM tool so you can pop your SIM card inside. Okay, let's pretend you didn't see that. It's a slippery phone. As you can see, it just flew right out of my hands, but look, it's not gonna break dropping a couple of feet. You know, if it does, then that kind of speaks to the build quality of the product itself. But right off the bat, you can tell that there's this kind of like metallic shiny finish. Depending on which way you actually shine the phone, you get different colors on the back. The back of the phone is made out of plastic. It does not support wireless charging, but at least you do have that super dart charging if you want to top it up quickly. Even if you press on the button on the right hand side, which is the power button, it feels kind of plasticky. It doesn't feel as bad as cheaper plastic buttons, but just to let you know, it's not metal. The other side, you have your volume rocker, you have your SIM card, which is at the top. You have a headphone jack, which is always nice to see, your microphone, and then of course your USB Type-C port. Now this phone does not have stereo speakers. You only have one speaker on the bottom. So if that's gonna bother you, there's other mid-range devices that do have stereo speakers, which will give you better external sound. When you turn on your device and you enter your Google information and whatever else you need to do, this is what you're greeted for the first time. You have a bluish, purplish wallpaper, which kind of resembles the back colors of the smartphone. This is Realme's UI, which I find to be super duper clean. I was looking for tons of bloatware, but they've done a pretty good job of not installing too much. Like you have some apps like Soloop and PUBG Mobile if you are not a gamer installed, but it's not too bad. When you swipe to the right, you get Google Now, so you can explore your news and information that pertains to what you're interested in. And of course you have like Realme's kind of circly, bubbly, quick notification settings that allow you to do things like toggle dark mode right off the bat. Now this is Android 11, and so far it feels nice and fluid, but one thing that I really like is the symmetry. Like, it feels like a good phone in the hand. It's a pretty big display at 6.4 inches. This is kind of what it looks like to a smaller iPhone 12. I don't find this phone to be too big. Like, I still find it to be one-handable, especially if you have long fingers like me. And quite frankly, for like 300 to 400 bucks, this Super AMOLED screen is really nice, and it gets up to like 1000 nits of brightness. So if you live in India where it's like always bright and the sun is out and you're constantly outside, like, you're gonna be able to see what you need to see on this screen without it looking too dim. Now on the top you do have a 32 megapixel camera, and right off the bat, as soon as you load the camera, smoothing mode is enabled. This is what it kind of looks like with their smooth option enabled. If you take it off and you put it on natural mode, this is what it looks like instead. And of course you have like different modes you can choose to accentuate different features of your face. but most of these things to me are kind of gimmicky, so I just leave it on natural the entire time. Now this front-facing camera, even though it has a high megapixel count, it's not a 4K camera. It can only do 1080p, so don't expect to shoot 4K with it, but who cares really, because you have all the big cameras on the back that'll take care of that for you. So here's what the front-facing camera looks like at 1080p. It defaults at 720, so make sure to change it if you get this smartphone. There's a lot of light bouncing everywhere, so it's staying focused on my face and exposing for my face and then blowing out the background. If I turn around like this, then you're gonna get a much more appealing image just because the light is hitting my face and it obviously is softened a bit more, and this will give you an idea of what the actual microphones sound like. It comes with 3. So the wide camera is 64 megapixels, but most of the time you're shooting in 16 megapixels, it crops down, and then you have an 8 megapixel ultra wide lens and then a 2 megapixel macro lens. Now you can zoom up to 5 times, like right off the bat at 0.6x, it's on its ultra wide mode, so it's using the 8 megapixel sensor, but as soon as you tap once, it defaults to the 64 megapixel camera. And then if you tap it again, it goes up to 2 times, which is cropping in. And then of course you can do 5 times, which gets you nice and close to the subject. Now there's tons of other little features, like of course you have portrait mode, so if you want to blur the background, it does that too. And of course you can use this on the front facing camera as well. But there's tons of other little things that may appeal to you. Like for example, there's a starry mode, there's a dual video mode that allow you to use the back and front facing cameras at the same time. You can do slow-mo if you want to slow down the object after you see some sort of movement to give that cool effect. And then of course you have panorama, text scanner if you want to translate, ultra macro if you want to get super close, time lapse, and then you can even go into pro mode if you want to fine tune the white balance and of course change things like the aperture and shutter speed. I totally forgot to turn on the high refresh display, but this thing is 120 Hertz and it feels so much better when it's on. Now this is not an adaptive display, meaning like when you're not using the scrolling mechanism, it's not going to ramp down to, let's say, a lower hertz to reserve battery life. So you will take a bigger hit than you would on a smartphone that has the adaptive refresh rate. So pretty big battery at 4,000 milliamp hours, but if you're going to leave 120 hertz on the entire time, you will see less battery life. But if you want, you can go into the settings and then you can go under display and you can change it to 60 hertz if you feel like the battery life is not as good as you want it to be. Now, there's a couple of other cool things, like you have edge lighting, so like if a phone call comes in and you have it set up for it, the edge will kind of light up. You can change wallpapers, and of course there's an always on display that you can enable to see certain notifications or the time when you're not inside using your phone. So hopefully this gives you an idea of what the sound quality is like. It's coming out of the bottom speaker. I'm not really experiencing any sort of lag. Just know that if you're playing racing games like this and you cover it with your hand, you're not going to hear the sound at all. But overall, it feels very smooth. Like I'm not experiencing any sort of drops. The game is totally playable, and overall, it looks really great. Honestly, there's not a lot to complain about for $300 to $400 depending on the region you're in. Like this phone, with its specs, offers very compelling value with good performance. I do like the vegan leather option of this. I think that looks really cool. So if you want something different than like your standard looking smartphone, there's always that option as well. But yeah, that wraps it up for this unboxing. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you're interested in checking out the Realme GT Master Edition, there'll be links in the description as well. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next one.